Hello everybody, this is Mel, the Scientific Trader here, and this is part 2 of the 90,000 project. Today is Monday the 11th of March. I am doing this webinar slightly early. It was supposed to have been towards the end of the week, early next week, but due to other appointments, I felt it best to do it now so that I can get it out of the way rather than it being risk delayed till the third week of March. As I've said, these webinars are going to be twice a month. And the webinars are mainly aimed at providing updates on where I am on this project, as well as looking at some insightful topics for discussion, which I believe might be relevant to where some of you may be in your trading journey. So today, part 2 is called the power of the percentage risk, and there's something which I wanted to expound upon regarding the power of percentage-based risk trading. It was something I alluded to in the first webinar of the 90,000 project, but it's something which I want to drill into a bit more detail today, just so that you can understand exactly how potent this particular concept is. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to provide an update on the project. We're 10 days into the project, and if you haven't seen a Twitter I sent out on Sunday the 10th, it was basically just to say that at this moment in time, after 10 days, I'm just over £1,200 in profit. Not as much as I would have wanted after 10 days, but as you're well aware, it's not a marathon. It's a marathon, should I say? It's not a sprint, and clearly we're going to come across ebbs and flows on this journey where sometimes it's going to be going significantly rapid in terms of the equity building. Then there's going to be other times where it's going to be quite slow, and then there's other times where there might be simply just sideways motion where it's going up and down and not really going anywhere. And there may be times also where it might go down. So these are the ebbs and flows of the trading journey, and over the course of the next 6 to 7 months, you'll have an opportunity to see exactly how these ebbs and flows fluctuate. We can't really predict what's going to happen on a day-by-day basis, but what we do know based on the simulations is that certainly on a weekly, if not a monthly basis, we should be in profit on an ongoing basis, and we should see that the equity curve over many trades is actually still heading north. What I'm going to do as well, in terms of the verification of the results, I'm going to leave the first verification process till the end of March. So by the end of March, I should have hopefully have reached about 130 trades, and I think that will give us a good amount of data to then start going in and doing our analysis. So the results verification, where I will be going into my trading account to verify results on a daily, weekly and monthly basis, that will all take place all at once at the end of March. But then after March, each successive month after March, I will obviously do it mid-month and end of a month. But what I wanted to do, because this is the first month, I wanted just to get at least 1 month of data in-house before we actually start drilling in terms of the validation, the verification and the analysis. In terms of the last webinar which I sent out a few weeks ago, there was something that I just wanted to mention because I forgot. How could I forget? you may remember I was basically saying how one of the frustrations I had, especially during my early years, um, in terms of my sort of foray into sports trading, was the fact that I always seemed to have always been met with a wall of silence anytime I was asking, especially when I would go into forums, if I would ask the question, is there anybody here that's successful as a sort of full-time sports trader, and how much are you making per month? And I would always be met by a wall of silence. And I think I said in my webinar last time that I didn't really know of many, especially football traders, who were actually making a full-time living. And I think I then mentioned that, well, there were a few like FTS Income and Sports Trading Life. These are examples of organizations that now provide services to the sort of sports trading community. And I do know that the guys there are obviously making significant amount from football trading on a monthly basis, and that's one of the reasons why their services have been sort of quite sustainable and successful. But one of the other guys I forgot to mention was Psychoff. How many of you know Psychoff or remember Psychoff? And I, for some reason, forgot about him. But Psychoff obviously is kind of like a living legend in football trading. He was actually running a tipping service for a number of years, but I believe he's actually stopped it now. And Psychoff, we know, was making significant amounts. It was verified by a number of people, and he's been interviewed in the past, and he's just on a different level. He might be king of the hill, because I don't know anybody else that's making the level of money that he's making per month. But certainly, I just wanted to sort of give Psychoff a bit of a mention, because he is somebody that is known. Now, there are people that doubt him, but as I said, the people that doubt are people that most of the time are not making money, and so they will doubt anything that sounds too good to be true. But Psychoff's results have certainly been verified in the past. His tipping service wasn't the basis of what he does full time. If it was, then as you can clearly see with his tipping service, it was a bit up and down, and that's probably why he stopped it now, because every time he went through variants, the amount of hate mail he used to get. So I can understand why he doesn't need that botheration. And that actually brings up another point, which is what I've sort of discovered, especially talking to the likes of Ross from Warrior Trading and others who provide services, trading services, or trading sort of intelligence. What I've sort of picked up from these guys is that when they get a lot of flack, from haters and trolls, I can now understand why most of the time they don't even bother respond. Because if you can just imagine, like, I don't know, trying to use an analogy here, like a lion. If you imagine a lion in some sort of wilderness, some sort of African terrain, a lion there lying down. And I think what they said is that once a lion has sort of eaten his fill, and he's full up, sometimes other animals can basically pass the lion where it is situated, and the lion doesn't even buzz or move, because of the fact that he's actually feeling content, he's satisfied, and there's no need for him to go chasing anything else at that moment in time. And I kind of sort of see that analogy in terms of sports trading, in the sense that once you've kind of started to make it, and once you're hitting significant income, you kind of then realize that there's no point, and it's a waste of time dealing with haters, because at the end of the day, it's it's just a pointless exercise, because the bigger priority is actually in terms of income generation. And so, when other people are kind of complaining and moaning about what you're doing, it's kind of like a lion swatting away its paw, using its paw to swat away flies that are sort of circling around its head. They're a nuisance, but they're not a priority. So, as this project progresses, no doubt you might come across things that are written about this project in the media, and I'm not really going to bother to respond to them for the most part, because what's the point at the end of the day if you've got something that is working? Why put all of your energy in trying to fight off flies? Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is the proof in the pudding. So what I wanted to do today was one of the things I'm going to talk about, or what the basis of this webinar is. It's basically the weapon which I call risk-based compounding and weekends. And we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. But before I do, as I've said, the next webinar will be the end of March, and the full month's worth of results and validation will also take place at the end of March as well. So the next webinar is probably going to be quite a lengthy one, because we're going to be going piecemeal through the data to verify and make sure that everything is true, and that there's no mistakes in terms of the results. Okay, just one other thing I just wanted to add is I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of books on trading, and I think in previous webinars I've probably made reference to some of the books that I've got in my library. Some of them you may know, some of them you probably have as well. So Mark Douglas's Trading in the Zone, The Disciplined Trader, and also some of the publications written by Van Tharp. But there were two publications which I've read over the last 3 months, which I feel might be useful for you as well. And obviously they're kind of slightly a step back from just the nitty-gritty of sort of financial trading, but it's more at a sort of holistic level, looking at the whole concept of prediction. And I found these books to be really, really interesting books. I mean, some of the gems that were hidden in there were just amazing, especially looking at particular case studies of people that have actually risen from devastation to basically get to the point where they're actually now made a success of it. And really, these two books I feel should be in your library. I have found them a tremendous source of information, a tremendous source of being able to see things from different perspectives, and being able to actually almost like look at things from not from the norm, but from a completely different perspective. And I think without sort of going into detail about what these two books are about, I think the title of the books gives you some insight, and you can clearly, if you go to Amazon, get a bit more information about what the contents are. But these are two books which I've found very useful. And The Signal and the Noise is very useful, because I think one of the challenges that we have as traders is really, how do we separate the signal from the noise? So when you're looking at reams and reams of data, how are you able to tell whether what you've spotted is an actual true trend or true pattern, rather than being sort of like a false pattern or like a mirage? And how do you separate the noise, the deadwood, from something that's actually of worth? And so I hope these books, if you do get them, will be a source of inspiration to you, as it was for me. One of the other things I just wanted to talk about was the website scienciatrading.com, the homepage. I've added some articles to the homepage. Some of these articles are articles which I've sort of had in my repository, and I'll be adding more and more as we go along. But this is just to give you some extra sort of global intelligence in terms of what's happening in terms of sports trading within the industry, different hedge funds that are getting involved, um, particular questions that people might have regarding tax classification, and certain white papers, scientific white papers on particular aspects of football, which I've which have actually influenced some of the ways that I actually trade. So if you go to scienciatrading.com, you'll be able to see the articles, which will be added more and more as we go along. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was Monte Carlo expert. A number of people have actually asked me in terms of the Monte Carlo, any sort of resources, and the truth is that your best bet is to actually purchase or get an organization to actually develop exactly what you want according to your needs, because some of the Monte Carlo packages out there which are free, some of them have errors in them, some of them the display, the output isn't that great, and so my recommendation is that if you really do want to veer down the path of Monte Carlo analysis, then obviously we would recommend montecarloexpert.com, because they've been heavily involved in developing different Monte Carlo analysis tools for the financial trading industry for many years, and they've got a lot of expertise, and they also work according to requirements, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. You tell them what you want, they'll tell you the level of work that's needed, they'll price it up, and then they'll actually develop it for you in a format that you want it to be in. So obviously, I mean, there is a Monte Carlo analysis. I mean, these guys are actually building something for me right now anyway, but one of the ones which I already have, which I'm using, is looks like this. So this is an example of a Monte Carlo simulator that I use, um, and basically what I like about this Monte Carlo simulator is the fact that it's got a number of key features. One of the features I like is the fact that it shows you each individual output of each individual simulated trade, and I think that's quite important. And over here it gives you some key metrics for 500 trades and key metrics here for 100 trades. It also comes with a graphical output, like an equity curve. So it's like an equity curve. I don't really like the equity curve. I think it's a bit sort of it's not as I would want it, which is why I'm having something built the way I want it to be built. But this is something which is good and is used as part of my arsenal. So, for instance, the way that it works is, your starting capital. So just based on the project that I'm doing, like if we say we're starting with 15,000 as our deposit, as our bank, in terms of the risk, if we're using 1% risk, this particular simulator is actually limited, so it doesn't provide an opportunity for use to use a fixed risk model. It's all percentage based. So 1%, if I'm winning 43% and my payoff ratio is 3 to 1, so I'll put 3 in there. Commissions, so whatever the commission is for whatever exchange system you're using, you'd add your commission in there. So if I click calculate, what you see, it will run a simulation for 500 trades. And so this is what you see here is actually each individual simulated trade. Yeah. So there's trade 1 in the brackets. It tells you what the trade number is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It will go all the way down to down to 500, which you can see here. And so you can see here that in this example, out of the first 11 trades, I'm only won one. And so that's why it shows you that the capital has actually gone down from 15,000 to 14,000. But like any true strategy which has a positive expectancy, there's a mean reversion that takes place, and then it starts to rebound. And as you can see, the equity now starts to climb. Yeah. The 100 trade simulation is good in looking at the first 100 trades to get a feel for where your system is. So basically started off with 15,000, and then after 100 trades the ending capital was 25, which basically means there was a 71% increase on bank, and the net profit was 10,000. Yeah. As you see, if I keep clicking calculate, it's going to change because that's how a simulator works. So now it's the net profit's 15,000 after 100 trades. Now 6,000, 24, 26, 16. So basically the simulator is trying to sort of simulate what are the possible or probable trading results that you would experience based on the metrics that you've provided here. So this is something which I use quite effectively. However, there are some things about it which need to be improved, or there are some things about it which need to be which I don't like. So that's why I'm having something completely different built for me. But this gives you an example of what to expect with any type of simulator that you use to simulate results. Okay, so hopefully that's giving you some insights which you can follow up on if needs be. Right, so what I wanted to do today was I'm going to be talking about, you may remember this slide from the last webinar. These are some critical success factors which underpin the strategy that I implement. The win rate 43% is the mean, so that can fluctuate week by week, but over a period of time the mean is around 43%. My reward to risk is actually 3.2 to 1, but I've rounded it down to 3 to 1 to taking into account the fact that with Betfair, the Betfair exchange, there are charges, Betfair charges, that they apply to transactions. So by making it 3 to 1, I kind of cover it in the sense that my true reward to risk is 3.2 to 1, but rounding it down to 3 to 1 kind of takes care of covering the transactional cost. Number of occurrences 130 per month. Starting bank for the project was 15,000, and I also talked about the reason why I chose 1% as the risk which I would use in terms of my trading liabilities. Now you may remember last webinar I did a manual simulation using Roll Dice Online, where I obviously simulated a 43% trading strategy, and basically use this as a basis to generate results, to get a projected idea as to how much I could possibly generate in terms of profit over a 10-week period. There is a typo here, and what that typo is the average number of trades where it says 5+, that should be Friday to Sunday, because Friday, Saturday and Sundays generate the biggest football cards. And so based on that, it stands to reason that I'm going to have the opportunity to trade a lot of times in those 3 days, as opposed to Monday to Thursday, where the card is normally less. Now, with Monday to Thursday, it just depends on where you are in the year and where you are in the week. But there are some days in the week where you can still have quite a strong card where I may actually trade beyond 5 times in that given day. But for the purpose of the simulation, we kind of just say, well, Monday to Thursday, just make it 5, because we don't know if it's going to be, we don't know if it's going to be a good or an average day, Monday to Thursday, but certainly Friday to Sunday, we know that it's always going to be a strong handy day in terms of the number of potential trading opportunities. And then the trade was run over a 10-week period. Now, one of the things which, and this was something that some people pointed out to me, which shows that people are actually thinking this through correctly. When I did the simulation in the last webinar, that simulation was based, it was actually, it didn't actually give a true reflection in the sense that when I was applying the simulated model, I was applying it on the basis that the bank was, so each week, if you can remember, there were 10 columns, but each week the bank was increasing. So what should happen is that if you're applying a percentage base risk-based approach, then the percentage should always be based on what the new balance is after wins and losses. Yeah. So what I wanted to do today was actually do that, because that will then show you how even more potent it is, because last time that potency wasn't actually realized because of the fact that I was actually maintaining, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So last time, these were the mechanics of what I was using to populate the fields with profits and losses. But these figures here would apply on a bank of 15,000. But, suppose the bank is increased to 20,000. Would it still be a 450 max loss if you're applying a 1% liability? So no, it wouldn't. It would change. This is actually going to fluctuate. So what I wanted to do was do another simulation, but this time it's actually going to be true in the sense that the profit and loss, potential profit and loss, will fluctuate based on what the bank is, and that is where the power of a percentage-based risk approach comes in, and also, again, the power of why Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays can be sort of phenomenal accelerators for the equity curve. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to Excel, and I'm going to run a new simulation to show you the potency of when a risk-based approach is actually applied dynamically through the simulation. So here we are in the simulation mode. So what I wanted to do was just briefly explain some additions I've made to the spreadsheet. You may remember this format from the last webinar. There have been some slight changes I've made. One of those changes I've made is that the deposit will change based on the results that are being added in for each particular day. So remember, each column is representative of a week, and within each column there are 7 rows which indicate Monday to Sunday. And I'm going to highlight these rows, because these rows are actually the weekend rows. So Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and I've highlighted those rows because those are the rows where we're going to be able to push on beyond 5 trades for the day, because of the fact that most weekends the football, the number of games are so high that there's always the likelihood that you'll be able to exceed more than 5 trades for the day. So to get things started, so it's a 7-sided dice. We're going to roll it 10 times just so that it generates enough occurrences so that when we get to Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we can push on where we can push on. And the number of rolls, 7 rolls to represent each day of the week. Okay, so what the purpose of this simulation is going to be is to show you the true nature of the potency of 2 things. Number one, where we properly apply the risk-based, a percentage-based risk-based approach, because in the simulation that we did last time, as I said, these figures were constant throughout the 10-week simulation, if you can remember. But what you're going to see here is that as we move through each week, that these figures are going to change. These are going to basically dynamically change as a result of the percentage being applied to a different bank size. Okay, so let's roll. So the house rules again are the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I take the results of the first 5 trades. If I start off the bat with 3 losing trades, then straight away I stop. That's my stop loss for the day. And each loss is £150. So if I hit 3 losses straight away, that's a 450 loss. And because I'm operating with a 3-to-1 reward to risk ratio, it means that each profit is 450 and each loss is minus 150. Right, so let's start the simulation. So the first 5 trades for Monday has resulted in 4 trading wins, because 1, 3, 3, 1. We said that 1 to 3 is where there's a win, and if it's 4 to 7, it's a loss. So we can clearly see that there are 4 wins, which means that's £1,650. The next one is a loss, because I hit 3 straight losses out of the bat. Here there were 2 wins, which is 450. 7, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. There were 3 wins there, which takes it to 1050. Now we've hit the weekends, which is Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So for Friday, I haven't managed to, I've hit 1 win and 4 losses. So that's minus 150. I don't push on after 5 trades. If I'm in a loss, I don't push on. It's just a rule I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 wins, 1650. So I push on, but the next one is a loss. So it takes me back down to 1500. And then the final one, which is Sunday, there were 2 wins for 450 minus a loss, because the next one is 6. So 450 minus 150 is 300. Okay, so for the first week of simulation, we can see that the profit was 4,350. Now what we can see now is that the balance, or the deposit, has actually increased to £19,350, which now means that for this week, when we apply our 1% of bank, our new liability is going to be 193.50. I hope that's clear. So what this now means is that just equals G23 equals G23 times, oops, just one moment. Okay, So basically we know that the win is 3 times the size of the loss. That's why I've got this equation here. But I've added a negative to take away the negative that it would cause the end result if I'm timesing minus 150 times by 3. So what we do now for week 2, we change the liability from 150 to, which means that the that the profit is now per trade £580.50. The liability is going to be now 193.50. Now it should be times. So there's a couple of things that I put in as constants, which should actually be calculated through an equation. So G23 times 3. Sorry, G. Okay, so that makes sense. Just making sure I've got this all right. Yep. Okay, so for week number 2, let's see how things go. So let's roll the dice again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So week number 2, for Monday there were 2 wins. So that's 580.5. For Tuesday there were 3 wins, 1354.50. For Wednesday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 4 wins, 2128.5. For Thursday, there were 3 wins, 1354.50. Now we're hitting Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For Friday, there were 1, 2, 3 wins, which is 1354.50. But now we're going to push on, and there's an additional win and then a loss. So that additional win is an additional 580.50. And then the loss, take away 193.50, brings it to 1741.50. Now, okay, there's 3 losses there, so we're out for the day. And 3 losses takes us to minus 580. And then finally, another 3 losses down here, 4, 6, and 5. So minus 580.5. So for week number 2, what's happened is that we've made £5,998.50 profit, which has taken our bank to... Sorry, I just had to stop the video and make an amendment, because what should be happening is that there was a problem with the code, but it's now been corrected. So basically, when we get to week 3, our balance is the result of £5,998.50 being added to what the deposit was at the beginning of that week. So now it's at £25,348.50, which now means that our liability, 1% of our bank, means that our new liability is going to be minus 253.49. So 53.49. So when I make that change, you can now see that these figures are now going to apply for this week. So let's start for this week. This is the 3rd week. So straight out of the bat, I've hit a loss of minus 760.47. And then here I've hit 1 win and 4 losses, which is minus 253.49. In fact, I should make that negative there. And one of the other things I've forgotten to do is format it. Should make it better. Okay. Right. So moving on to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, moving on to Wednesday. So this hasn't really started out as a great week, has it? 760.47. But as I said, normally this should, let's see how this goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So for Thursday there were 3 wins. 1774.43. Friday now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Friday minus 253.49. So not a great week so far. We're actually down. And again, another 1, 4. So this is what can happen in trading. This is where variance is kicking in big time. So that was 3 losses on this, on the Sunday, which takes us to minus 760.47. So for this week, it was a loss. So basically what's happened is at the beginning of the week, the balance was 25,000. But now it's gone down to 24,000. And so what happens naturally is because we're applying 1% risk-based approach, it means that our liability for each trade will actually slightly go down. So now it's saying it should be minus 240.81. So I'm going to make the change here. And it makes a slight change here. So let's roll on to week number 4. Now, normally my experience has been when I have rough weeks like this, and I'm glad this has happened because this actually shows you that you can have losing weeks. Yeah, but what I would be expecting now is for a mean reversion to take place. Very unlikely that week 4 is actually going to be another losing week. So we roll the dice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 wins. That's 722.43. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 wins again. 722.43. Here we have a loss of, and then moving down, here we have 3 wins, which is 1685.67. And then we've hit Friday, which is 3 wins and then a loss. So that's 1685.67. Take away 240.81, which makes it 144.86. Here we have 2 wins, which is 722.43. And when we push on, we get another win, which is 722.3. And then we have to we hit a loss here, which means we have to take away 240.81. So altogether for this Saturday, it's £1,204.05. And then move into the very last trade day of the week. 3 wins, which again is 1685.67 plus plus 722.43, and then take away So we hit a loss here, take away 240.81. So we've finished 2167.29. So look at this. Look, this is what I wanted to mention to you. What we've experienced is a mean reversion. So we've come back very strongly with £7,000 worth of profit. Yeah. And what that basically means is going into week number 5, our account is now at 31,000. Yeah. And we've already made £16,000 worth of profit in the first 4 weeks. And that's including a week where we were actually negative for that week. So going into week number 5, we can see now that the liability needs to be changed. And again, when I change this liability, look at the change it makes here. Minus 313.05. There we go. Yeah. So let's roll on. 465, so that's a minus 939. Now we're getting to the point now where our max liability for a day is approaching £1,000, which in isolation you think, geez, that's a lot, but in relation to the bank, it's still percentage-wise, it's still not a huge strain on the bank, because right now our bank is now at 31,000. Yeah. Okay, so for the second down a trot, we've hit a full loss for the day, 3 losses for the day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for Wednesday, 2 wins, £939.90, £939.15. On Thursday, we've hit 2 wins, which is again another £939.15. Now we've hit Friday. Now Friday we've hit a loss of 3 losses, so that's minus £939.15. And Saturday, Saturday we had 2 wins, which is 939.15. Then we've hit another win here, which is another 939.15, and then we've hit a loss, take away £313.05. So on Saturday our profit is this, and then the final day of the week, which is the Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've hit 4 wins, 3,443.55, and then we've got 1 more win and 1 more loss. So in total, that's 4,069.65. Now, so what's happened now is that our bank has actually increased to 36,000. Now, what I'm trying to do here is basically show you the power of a risk-based approach, because I believe that in the simulation we did in the last webinar, where we weren't actually doing a risk-based approach, it was actually fixed risks. I think it took 10 weeks to get to 30,000. Yeah, it took 10 weeks to get to 30,000, but here we are. We're already at 21,000, and we've only just completed halfway. So this is showing you the power. Now, here is where one may need to then sort of look at where they are in terms of their trading, because because of the fact that our liabilities are going to be increasing, and when our liabilities increase, it's going to obviously have an effect on terms of what our MAT's daily loss is. Now, this really comes down to what are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with losing more than £1,000 in a day because of the fact that your bank is now in the 30s? Or is it the case that you're of the approach that it doesn't really matter to me, because at the end of the day, when I look at what proportion of the bank that my MAT's daily loss is, it isn't it's not in any way more adverse than it was when it was minus 450 here and 15,000 deposit. So these are some, and then you've also got to bear in mind, well, in terms of the markets that you're operating in terms of liquidity, if you're putting on trades where your liability is, for instance, if you're putting on a 3-to-1 trade where you're looking for £900 trade to be eaten up for £313 liability, is the market that you're in able to handle it without it then having an impact in terms of your win rate? Because obviously the larger your size is, the more time it takes for the market to actually take your entry. And you can then start getting to the point where your size is so big, your staking is so big, that it has an impact where it takes longer for the market to take your entry, and then something could happen which causes the market to move before you've had an opportunity to get matched completely. And then what you're going to then start finding is that over time your win rate's going to come down, because you're starting to lose out on potential trades because of the fact that your entry hasn't been taken in time. So these are some of the things which you're going to need to sort of think about and have decisions in place as to what happens once you get to a certain size. But I'm hoping you're starting to see what's happening. So you can see that the bank is increasing. Yeah. So 15,000, it's now at 36,000. We had one losing week, but the losing week was very, very constrained in proportion to what the winning weeks are. Okay, so using £360, it's now telling us that yeah, you can see the effect here. So let's run it and see where we go with this. But I would imagine that you're now starting to see what we're talking about here. So 1, 2, so there were 2 wins. So even 2 wins, 1080. I'll stop yabbing now, and I'll simply just put the results in. 33252. Three wins. 4 wins. 3960. Weekends. 2 wins and a loss. $720. Saturday is the same as Friday's, 2 wins and a loss. And then Sunday is 2 wins. But then we've had yeah, it's the same again. So for 3 consecutive days, it was the same. Right. Right. Now look at what's happening here. This particular week, we made 12 grand. So basically the balance has jumped, the equity has jumped from 36 to 48,000. And for the beginning of week 7, our new liability per trade is going to be minus 482.41. Now, I know for myself, based on the markets that I'm trading in, I kind of feel that possibly, I kind of feel that once I hit £500 in terms of liabilities per trade, I think if I start going above that, it may then start having an effect in terms of my win rate. So I think for now, I think what I would then do is, and also, you know, because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you know, how much money, how much more money do you want to make? I mean, at the end of the day, whatever you make, there's always more you can make. And I suppose sometimes you have to kind of decide, well, what is it I'm happy with? What are my financial objectives? What am I trying to aim? What are my aspirations financially? And once you've reached a level where you're able to meet that, then you kind of stay with that particular metric rather than going on and on and on and on. Because I mean, right now, the data is telling me that you know, if I have a day where I get 3 losing trades out of the bat, that's nearly a £1,500 loss. So for me, I kind of feel that possibly, I don't know. I suppose at the end of the day, it depends on where you are, because you know, emotions and can change based on what you have in the bank. But I mean, if I'm sitting on nearly £50,000 in the bank, I kind of believe I would be content with where things are now. I wouldn't necessarily have a need to keep pushing on to where my losses approach, you know, I mean, let's just say my losses were now, I'd got to the stage where my losses were 1,000 each. I mean, and my wins are 3,000. I mean, this is what I could make. But I mean, to get £3,000 matched, I think then it would probably have an adverse effect on my win rate, because you know, trying to get 3,000 matched as opposed to, you know, as opposed to 1,500, there's going to be a definite shift in terms of, you know, and you've got to remember, some of the markets that I go into are not necessarily the most liquid markets all the time. So let's just keep it as here. So I'm going to sort of keep it here now. This is kind of the matte ceiling. And so let's just see how this goes for the rest of the remaining 4 weeks. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So here 4, 5,000. I mean, now you're really starting to feel the true extent of what's happening here with this particular model. Here there was 1 loss, 1 win, 3 losses. 1 win, 4 losses, sorry. So that's a minus 482.41. And the same again here, one win, 4 losses. So again, it's the same. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday there were. So here we've hit our max loss for the day. Friday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So there were 2 wins on a Friday, which brings us to 1447.23. And 1, 2, 3. Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unbelievable. So there's an additional 5 winning trades. And look, each trade is worth 1447.23. So 0.23 times 5 plus. So on Friday, 8683.38, £8,000. Saturday, there were 3 wins, so 3376.87. Take 482.41 because we had the loss here, the extra loss, which comes to 2894.46. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. 2 wins here. 1447.23 plus take away the loss 482.41, which that came to £964.82. Now, as you can see, we're now at 63,000. Now, what's happened is it's now telling us that our new liability should be 636, but I'm gonna we're not going to do that for reasons that I've already described. So it's still going to remain, this model is still going to apply to week 8, 9 and 10. So week 8, 3 wins. Three wins again for the second day. 2, 3, 4, 5. For the third day, there were 4 wins. 5,000. Oh, sorry. Actually, what I'll do. Oh, okay. I'll just have to do it manually. 5306.51. So that was for Wednesday. Thursday, there were 2 wins. 1447.23. And then we hit Friday, where there were 2 wins and a loss, which brings us down to 964.82. Saturday, there were 3 wins and a loss. So 3376.87. Take 482.41. So that takes us to 2894.96. And then the last day of the week is actually a 1, so it's a minus 482.41. So I mean, look, going into week 9, if we were still applying the 1% based risk approach with a bank of 80,000, the liability would now be 805. I mean, let's just, for argument's sake, put this in and see what would this be telling us. I mean, these are phenomenal. These are phenomenal income streams. Yeah. But again, I said we're just going to keep it at the minus 482.41 because, personally speaking, for myself, even though I know I could go here, and this is why equity curve simulators that simulate percentage risk-based approaches can give a false sense of income because there's going to be a critical point where um, the size of your liabilities are actually going to start having a negative impact in terms of your win rate. But equity curve simulators that are only percentage based don't take that into consideration. They just keep going up and up and up, which is why you can get to the point where it's now telling you that you're going to be earning millions and millions, because it hasn't factored in the fact that there's other things that need to be factored into the decision making process. Okay, so week 9, so we just got 2 more to go. Okay, straight out of the bat, that's a minus 1447.23. This is a 1 on 4, so it's a minus 482. One of the other things that I just wanted to just reiterate is I've talked at some length last time about how this whole probabilistic model that I follow really does minimize variance. And you can clearly see here, because I mean, we've only had 1 bad week and we're already into week number 9. Yeah. So this is what I was telling you, that the probabilistic approach really helps to minimize variance, because I know that there's some systems out there where you could have variance, 2-3 weeks, even a whole month, but it's just not possible with this system, and the simulations prove it time and time and again. Okay, so day number 3, there were 3 wins, so it's 3376.87. 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, actually there were 4 wins here, so that's 5306.51. These kind of returns, these returns are only possible when your bank size has actually reached these levels. And again, you're not doing anything, you're not deviating from the norm. Remember, what we're doing here is applying a 1% rule. A 1% rule, and so that's why the importance of growing your equity is fundamental to you being able to sort of achieve this sort of level of income, because you can't achieve it with right, just one moment. Yeah, you can't achieve it with a bank size which is a lot lower, because you just don't have the capacity to get to these levels, which is why once you start hitting once your bankroll is 50,000 or more, it puts you in a tremendous advantageous position in terms of income building. Okay, so we're on to Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now Friday we've got 4 wins, which puts us at 5306. And then what's happened here is that we've got another 2 wins. And then a loss. Which brings us to 7,018.56. Here it's a 1 and a 4, so that's minus 482.14. And finally, it's 2 wins and a loss. So, sorry, 2 wins and then a loss if we try to push on. Which brings us to 964.82. So we're now going into the last week. And what's quite extraordinary is that we're already at £80,000 profit, and that's 10 weeks. Now 10 weeks is 10 weeks is sort of 2.5 months. Now, I started the project at the beginning of March. Is it conceivable that by May I could have already hit my target? Only time will tell. That's going to depend on my ability to stick to the rules, my ability to be disciplined, the ability to not take anything out of my bank and keep profits in my bank to help it compound. It's going to depend on whether I'm going to be able to meet that quota of 130 trades a month. So there are some variables there, but if we're just looking at it purely from a sort of conceptual and hypothetical vantage point, then you can clearly see that this is something that is absolutely incredible. And that's why I'm saying that, you know, the stats don't lie, and statistics doesn't lie, and probability doesn't lie. So let's go into the final week. 2 wins takes us to 1447.23. There's 3 wins there. 3376.87. Loss here, which is minus 1447.23. That is minus 482.41. So we come now to the Friday, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5,306.51. Take which comes to 4,824.1. Saturday there was only 1 win, so minus 482.41. And then finally, the very, very last day of the simulation is 3 wins, which is 3,376.87. And then there's a loss there, take away 482.41. So the very last trading result is this. So here we have it. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the result of the simulation. And essentially is telling us that after 10 weeks, if we follow everything through methodically and as we should, this is the power of the process. And I always say that the power of the process really is concentrated in 2 fundamental things. Number 1 is obviously the 1% risk-based approach, because if you compare this to the simulation from the last webinar, you can clearly see, in fact, let's do that now. Let's bring up the simulation from the last webinar. So what we are looking at here is the simulation that was done in the last webinar, which was actually a fixed risk simulation, because these particular figures here were actually constant. So they didn't change regardless of the fact that the equity was actually increasing week by week. So at the end of 10 weeks, it would have been £30,000. And we kind of extrapolated and said, well, if after 10 weeks it's 30,000, then after 28 weeks, which is the duration of this project from March to September, then we could clearly see that with a fixed risk approach, we would be still hitting our, or more or less near our goal, which is 90,000 in terms of profit. Yeah. But after 10 weeks on the percentage risk-based approach, this is actually 90,000, not 30. So I'm hoping that you're starting to see the contrast here. Why the percentage-based approach, hands down, wins over a fixed risk approach, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't do this project and incorporate Bet365, because with my liabilities sort of increasing, there would have obviously come a point where 365 would have begun to sort of limit my account. So coming back to this simulation model, I hope this is somehow sort of embedded within your belief system how effective a probabilistic approach and a risk-based, percentage-based, risk-based approach, how powerful it is. I mean, these are the sorts of things that is life-changing financially, and this is where I'm geared. And you know, there's an old adage that you know, if you jump for the stars, if you land on the moon. So for me, the way I'm looking at this is that even if I don't hit, you know, 90,000 in 10 weeks, even if I hit 45, 50,000, that is still an incredible achievement when you actually then quantify what that means in terms of salary, and then compare it to, you know, what people are actually earning market value, you know, in terms of what contractors, IT contractors are earning, what they're taking home. I mean, I believe that the top IT contractors generally would be taking home sort of normally about £1,000 a day. And yet we've got a system here which can match that or beat it and still continue to expand in terms of the income potential, and all without you having a boss over your head or having to slave away to earn every single penny. So it's, you know, if this hopefully should be a final sort of endorsement of what I'm trying to achieve, and again show you the power of where this is going. And I think when you actually see it in a simulated model, it really helps you to see the nitty-gritty of how things actually sort of ramp up. And this whole compounding thing is very, very important. And again, I just want to reiterate, variance is minimized. Out of 10 weeks, there was only one losing week, and the losing week was very, very low in comparison to what you would earn in all the other weeks. Hope that's clear. Finally, an extrapolation. If this is what I earn in 10 weeks, you know, what would we earn in 28 weeks? Well, that would probably be over £250,000. These are the sorts of things that you're not going to hear most other people to talk about, other system sellers or other, you know, tipsters or whatever. But I'm on a different level in terms of where my thinking is. And, you know, I kind of tested something the other day. I put out a audio of some clips from two motivational speakers, Les Brown and Anthony Robbins. And you may have seen in Twitter, there was a response from somebody who said this was a load of crap and and you know, it's exactly that sort of mentality, which is why I don't understand. I mean, for me, motivational speakers and people that really help you to understand the power of belief and how that can actually shape your approach to problem solving, that is paramount for me. If I try and do it in a sort of traditional old black and white school approach, school type educational system approach, then I'll be floundering. But so that's why it's very important for me personally to feed myself with information from people who are life coaches, who have a tremendous amount to say about the power of belief, the power of focus. I mean, Brian Tracy is another one who I listen to a lot. And so, you know, as you come into my world, you start to understand the types of things that actually shape and force my framework, my world model in terms of how I approach things. And it's not for everybody, and I understand that not everybody is going to be in agreement with all the things that I do or say, or the types of things that I have an interest in. That's no problem. But you can only start thinking big if you're feeding yourself with philosophies and concepts that help to build a foundation in your mind, so that when you actually approach the enormity and the reality of what you can achieve, that your subconscious doesn't kick in and shut you down, but that you actually are able to actually embrace, grasp, and move forward and embrace and achieve the opportunity. So this is the end of the webinar for this time, and I will see you again at the end of March, where hopefully we should see good tidings. I'm sure you're all waiting to see what's going to happen based on what you've seen now with this simulation. But it's great having you on this journey, and feel free to ask me any questions through Twitter or by email, and where possible I will try to answer them.